I'm taking a little bit different approach. Hopefully this will be a little fun for you guys. I mean, we've been talking technology, technology, technology. I'm going to talk about the other side, the organic side, the people side of it, because technology is only good as the people using it behind it. So this is a true study. The names have been changed to protect the innocent, but I do work for Phillips Healthcare. This is a project that we did several years ago here. So, you know, this is, everybody, our leadership talks about change. They said, yeah, well, you're going to have change, you're going to have change, you're going to have change. So I figured out, well, they're okay with the change, just don't let it touch their department. And as long as you don't let it touch their department, the change is okay. So with that premise in mind, if you think about your projects, a lot of them are very technical, and the technical pieces are easy. You have, or easy in that you can define what the barriers are. You know, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, all of that stuff. But a lot of people don't spend any time or enough time on the people side of it. What does the change mean to them? What are their fears? What are they going to get out of it? How do we bring everybody along? Sure, we talk about training and things like that, and we may do some training courses, may do some webinars and stuff like that. We just kind of throw it up against the wall. We hope it sticks. We hope people take and embrace it. But then you get into the passive-aggressive behavior, because after the call, after the training, everybody starts talking. And if the leadership starts talking negatively about your project, it goes absolutely nowhere. And I've done projects where the SVPs, half were bought into it, half were not bought into it. And the half that weren't bought into it actively worked to sink the Titanic. So here's a few things to think about. And the very last thing is I'll give you some takeaways. I call them pearls of wisdom. So if you don't remember anything, maybe if you take a few pearls of wisdom away, I feel like I've maybe done some good here. So let me tell you a little bit about Phillips Healthcare first. A lot of folks don't realize, they think about Phillips, well, yeah, we made TVs, yeah, we made lights. We don't do that anymore. We're 100% into healthcare, or health tech as we like to think about it. So Phillips makes pretty much a broad spectrum of products across that. You probably know Sonicare. You probably know Norelco, the shavers. That fits into that brand. Maybe even our air fryers, Hue light bulbs. So there's a lot of things in that family continuum. But our whole mission statement is about touching people's lives in a positive way. And we want to touch them globally. So let me just tell you for a few seconds who the customers are. So this is probably, you know, a familiar scene to most people. So yeah, we service hospitals. We're in all the hospitals pretty much everywhere throughout the world. So my customer is nurses, doctors, clinicians. That's the easy customer. It's all you guys. It's every one of you. I guarantee you a piece of my equipment is going to touch you or your family member at some point in your life. If it's in an ICU, it's going to be our monitoring systems. If you're having a heart problem, it's going to be our heart cath. It's going to be one of our ultrasound machines if you're having a grandchild or a baby or something like that. We will touch you. So this is very personal business for me to make sure all of you folks are taken care of very well. But we talk about service here a little bit. So let me tell you about some of my other customers you may not realize. Think about servicing a customer that's in an ambulance. So we make defibrillators, we make remote monitoring and stuff. So when they place a service call, it's a moving target. But take it to the next extreme. We're on Carnival cruises and the other boats out there. Our defibrillators are on every major cruise line out there. So I get a call, they're in the Bahamas, they say the defibrillator doesn't work. Well, where are you going next? Well, we'll be in Cozumel in 2 days. So now you've got to try to work across different markets, different languages, to make sure you can have a service technician there. So I go from the sublime to the really weird. So here's something you probably didn't know. Phillips is the #1 supplier to the military, and we actually put our service technicians on the battlefield and in the theater. So we have saved, and our equipment has saved countless lives. So if any of you are veterans, or any of your significant others or kids are veterans and they got hurt, it's probably a piece of our equipment that touched it. So you think about service in Afghanistan or service in Iraq where you're being bombed. It's a completely different type of service environment. And if you can see the bottom, you say, well, what's a space station? How many times have you done service on a space station? Well, it's actually some Phillips software is on a space station, and our Alpharetta location is taking calls from the space station. So you talk about remote service, that adds, we haven't taken one from the moon yet, but we have taken it from the space station. So here we go. This is Grimm's Fairy Tales, for those of you who are old enough to remember that. This is Let's Tell a Story. So here's my story. So, the old days of, basically cell phones and dispatches. I mean, everybody started, if you're even as old as I am, you had voice pagers. So that's the day I started off with. As a service engineer, I had a voice pager. So, here we decide, hey, we need a new mobility solution. Because, we were using stuff like this, and basically our customers, our service techs, everybody was getting fairly frustrated with us because we couldn't coordinate things that were going on. So we decide, what are we going to do? So let me give you a little bit of a background right now. So really our first foray into mobility was with a Trio device. Anybody ever use a Trio? It's kind of the poor man's BlackBerry. So, and a Trio was actually, I think, a pretty decent device when it was on Palm software. But then we made the decision, let's switch it over to Windows Mobile. Anybody remember that? Boy, you talk about, yeah, there you go. Sucks to be you, yes. So we tried to move it to Windows Mobile. But the good thing was we had a relatively captive audience of developers of about 12 of them, so very responsive. They would help out our field when we released these things. However, we did have problems with it. Well, the field didn't like them at all. And being in a very mobile environment, they would drop their stuff. These devices were break. They were consumer devices. They were not commercial devices. So that was part of the problem with the Trios. We're replacing, with a population of we had about 2,500, 2,700 of these things out in the field. We were replacing about 25 to 30 a week on these things. They were having other issues with it. We would, especially with the Windows, you'd have to reboot the thing. They were taking the batteries out of them. It was just ugly. They didn't like these things. So we're thinking, okay, anything we do at this point is going to be good. Very little change management. Everybody's going to love it. They hated what we did. Here we go. So, first thing we assumed, very tech-savvy workforce. They can work on MRI machines, cath labs. We stand there when they're doing operations. Very, very high-tech environment. This stuff is networked together, so they're pretty network savvy. These guys and girls should know this stuff. This should be easy with the technology. Hated what we were doing currently, so of course anything's got to be better than what we're doing today, So we do the typical things. You get a core advisory team. That consisted of managers, field engineers, technical people. So we've got this group that we can do pilots with. So we're thinking, okay, we've got a good cross-segment of everybody. They'll give us good input. We can go about our project. And again, I think I shared with you, we're about 2,000 field engineers that would be using these devices, along with about 300 managers. So that's kind of the background on who we were trying to touch with this project. So we start thinking, what do we need to do? What's the next step? So here's our requirements. So we're thinking, as we go through these requirements, we're thinking, well, we don't want to be changing out 25 to 30 of these things a week. That's pretty expensive. So we want something more of a commercial device that's more rugged. We want something that's going to run something fairly modern. At that time, we thought it was Windows, but time is a good teacher. Wanted the user experience to be seamless. I heard it earlier today that if you open up the application, it should just be very intuitive on how to use it. Shouldn't take a whole lot of training. Some other things with it is we realized that some people were texting while they were driving. They were doing other things with their mobile devices. So we actually wanted to lock them down, almost kind of like the police or they do in taxi cabs, with some type of docking device. So their device could be locked in while they're driving. They wouldn't be operating it, but yet they could still get information back. So got all of it. So, okay, ta-da, run a pilot. Again, no rocket science here. So these were the finalists, these devices, and that's probably giving you an idea of the date. So over here on the side, we have a Palm device. In the center was, at that time, brand new technology about ready to be released by Motorola. And at the very right of the screen is a device called Intermec CN50. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. So basically it came down to these devices. So here we go. We're getting ready to kick the tires. You know, we've got Top Gun here, technician. He's going to get there and go through it and try all of these things and come up and tell us with who do we think the winner is. And again, remember our requirements. Had to be easy to use, had to be rugged, had to be more of a commercial type device where we know that the platform would exist for several years versus, you know, like an LG phone or something that every 6 months they're going to have a new system. So Maverick goes and tries them out. So here we go. Here's the winner. So basically the winner that everybody came up with was the CN50, the Intermec device. And it ran Windows, which was one of our requirements. It was a rugged device. I personally took the thing, threw it on the floor about 5 or 6 times. It kept working. It never broke. It never missed a beat. It also had some other cool features in there we thought we would use, like scanners and stuff like that, and it had a port on it where we could actually run diagnostics on it. It was easy to use, and again, a commercial device. We didn't think it would fail on us. So here we go. So what do we do with this thing? So we go out and we buy about 2,300 of these things. I mean, and these things, you know, depending upon the price of them, the retail on them is well over $1,000 a pop. Phillips got them for a little less than that because we were buying bulk. But we spent about $2 million in these devices. So now we literally have boxes of these CN50 devices that we have to load software with and do a bunch of stuff with it. We also bought the car docking devices, which looked very industrial. They would lock in there, and they were very rugged, and we felt people wouldn't get hurt with that. We also set up training classes for everybody, and we set up a logistics team so we could ship all of these things to everybody in North America. So off and off and off we go here. We think our project is rolling along pretty good, right? So what happened? This is the part of audience participation, so pay attention, please. So release devices. They show up at your house. So now you got this box, you got this new thing, and most technical people are thinking, well, this is Christmas. You know, I've got this new device, this is cool, I'm going to go play with it, I'm going to go use it, right? So we got them to the homes. They worked exactly as we promised. They did all of the training. Basically, we communicated with everybody. The pilot community signed off on it, the leadership signed off on it. Everybody signed off on it. Technically, we found no defects. The project failed. So this is like Jeopardy. I'm giving you the answer. The project failed. You guys give me the question, why did it fail? And no Angry Birds. No, there was no games on it. No fun. Maybe that would have helped. Maybe an Angry Bird for them to shoot would have got rid of some of the frustration. So user experience, I heard that. Not exactly, no. The voice of something. And come on, and just it's a very simple guess too. It's not. There's no trick question here. Did tell them no. They were fully. By the way, they were fully charged when they arrived, so they were able to turn it on and see see their workload. You're close, but not for the right reason. So here, kind of another clue, ergonomics. But it was not ergonomics with the keyboard or anything. Does anybody have a thought around that? So keep in mind who these people are. I'm working with cardiologists. I'm working with brain surgeons. I'm working in a very high-tech field. Won't fit in your scrub pocket. A good answer, but not it. Here you go. What does that tell you? Not sterile. There you go. What are you sending me? Am I the UPS driver? I'm sorry if anybody's a UPS driver. Thank you for everything you do for me. But that was the problem. They're standing in a cath lab with a doctor, and now you pull out something that looks like the delivery guy. Not cool. Exactly. Not cool. Not cool. So what did they do with them? They left them in the trunk of the car. Most of them weren't ever even turned on. They took their old devices and kept using them. And the pilot group all gave thumbs up, and we had probably 15 field engineers and managers using this. All of them gave thumbs up. It was the wrong group. They didn't have managerial courage, and they didn't solicit the solution with the rest of their peers. And that's the thing, is you get that peer feedback. But the amazing thing is, as soon as they pulled that thing out, they said, who do you think I am, the airborne person? I'm not. You know, I went to college, I've got all of these degrees, I'm working with surgeons, you know, I'm working on this high-tech stuff, and then you give me this tool that looks like a hammer and a chisel. I'm not going to pull it out in front of anybody. So any of you Six Sigma proponents or Kaizen or Lean, anybody? Okay, I see a couple of people. So, you know, I'm a black belt, and what I always tell people, you know, they get involved in Six Sigma and they say, oh my word, the statistics are going to kill me. I said, no, statistics are not going to kill you. What's going to kill you is the question you never asked, because that's the thing that will kill you. Because as you go through a project or you try to uncover a problem, we don't ask the right questions. We never ask the question, what do you think about the customer's reaction to this device? So I could tell you about 3 of these sessions, maybe about 3 years ago, I came to one like this, going around asking all the vendors, would you like to buy 2,300 CN50 devices? And that's a true story. And one of them did buy them for like pennies on the dollar. We literally had them a year later, still wrapped in the plastic, had never even been taken out of the box. Because as soon as the first engineers took it out of the box, they told their buddies, that was it, they were done. So here's kind of a couple of the takeaways here. Really, in change management, always thinking is like you got to win people's hearts and minds. And so they're along for the journey. They've got to be bought into it. So if you talk to them and you have that one-on-one and you just realize they're just not getting it, then you're going to have a problem. And especially with the leadership, even when the leadership shakes their head, because the going's going to get tough, and they're going to have to tell some of their most trusted managers, you're off track, and you're either going to be with the program or you're going to be happy somewhere else. And they've got to be able to have that crucial conversation. Problem we had too was that the people chosen for the pilot were all like volunteers and stuff, but they didn't have managerial courage. So think about that as a qualification as you select your pilot team. They've got, not that they have to be outspoken, but they have to know when to speak up, and they know how to carry that banner, and they have to be able to push back on management and just say, I'm sorry, I can't carry this in front of my customer. I don't think my peers will do it. As I shared with Six Sigma, it's the question you don't ask is the one that gets us in trouble. So, that to me is just a huge takeaway. And I've covered most of them, but I'll leave on this slide with the bottom one here. No matter how small the stakeholder is, make sure you've at least identified them and somehow you're reaching out and touching them, because the smallest person down there in the corner of the room can be that passive aggressive that basically starts to work to undermine your entire project. So I'm putting in here a plug for a couple of books if you want to do some additional reading. On here, Cotter is kind of the godfather of all this stuff. Tons of books on change, whole basically boilerplate how to do it. If you don't want to read through all of that, Jim actually I think has spoken at some of these a couple of years back, but Jim has written a very small, easy read. You could read it probably in the first 30 minutes of your flight going back home. So if you want something quick and easy, Jim's book is pretty good too. So I'll give you something here, something a little lighter if we can. We'll roll a video here for a second. And this is an internal video, by the way, so it's like shot on a Brownie camera, and but the message is the same. So if you can roll the video.
I was born on June 18th, 1998 at Vanderbilt Hospital. I was born 3 months early. I only weighed 19 ounces. I weighed just a little bit more than this thing. My dad said I was in a hurry to bust into the world. He also said some very smart people were taking care of me. I just want you to know that I'm alive. And I'm healthy. Because of what you do. Thank you, Vanderbilt, for taking care of me. Keep up the good work, guys.
That's why we do it. That's why you guys are my customers. That was the daughter of one of our account reps. So it is very personal for me. It's why myself and my colleague Randy here, we do what we do, because we know it's good. We may not see you, but it will touch your life. Can you go back to the presentation, please? Hopefully you got a little feel for it. There's my contact information there. If you want to track me down and talk some more about change management, I've got better stories, and I can talk for 2 days on some of the gotchas on these things, but hopefully this is a little snippet that'll make you think next time you're involved in a project to ask that question that maybe didn't get asked. So I thank you. Any questions?
Any questions for Charles?
I think they need caffeine. Yeah, when's the bar open? Yeah.
You had listed kind of the don'ts, the things that you learned. To me, it seemed like one of the most important ones maybe that should have been on there. And did you consider that, as opposed to a big bang approach to the project, that it would have been maybe better to go out with a select group that was large enough to give you the feel and, you know, manage your risk?
Yeah, good question. So if just to kind of repeat it, you know, should we have done maybe a bigger pilot and then done it in stages? That was considered. The problem was we were moving to new software, so it almost had to be a big bang, and we had to get everybody on it at once. And we thought naively that the pilot group we had selected had done that, so they were actually running it for about 4 months before we intended to release it to the general population. So we thought that we had checked that box. But yeah, that's in some cases a good approach. If you can do kind of a soft launch or something like that and then tier it, we're doing that with a lot of other programs. One of the programs Randy is on, he will pick a country, launch it in a country, and then move to another country and another country and do it that way versus trying to hit the whole world at once with a new application. So, yep, thank you, good question. Going once, going twice, tequila time. Okay, well, thank you, everybody.